Here are their remarks.
Here are their remarks. Thumbs this up, by the way, rock finners. I don't see any thumbs up over here.
A very intimate and productive conversation overlooking the walls of Jerusalem. And it reminded me of how deep and profound your tie is to the Jewish state. I gave you a Bible as a gift, and I said that the people of the book have not had a better friend, and I mean it. And I want to also express my appreciation for our personal friendship and everything that went along with it. So every word that I'm saying here is meant from the heart. I think that the first thing I should do is also express my condolences on the deaths of 6 American members of the MFO in Sinai. You were a serviceman, and you know the pain of the loss of people. They were killed last week in a tragic accident. I sent a note, but I want to say it directly to you. And they were killed along with fellow peacemakers from France and the Czech Republic. So we honor their memory, and our thoughts and prayers are with their families.
So here's the thing. In this country, out of the gates, whenever you cross religion and politics, it is unacceptable. However, when you're in Israel, all of a sudden the Judeo-Christian thing is okay. And, they're talking about, overlooking the Holy Land and a mountainside and the book and giving him a Bible. I mean, that's pretty heavy when you look at, what happens in the Bible. That's all I'm saying. At the end of the day, if you believe in the Bible, and I'm not knocking Christians here, okay? Number one, I want to point out again, in American politics, this is rare. Unless you're playing to a certain group of people. And obviously, Trump plays to a certain group of people. And every once in a while invokes the Bible. But Mike Pompeo, boy, oh boy, when this goes beyond, when you think it's your religious duty to take back the Holy Land, that's a problem, especially when people live there.
Mike, we worked together closely for these past 4 years, first when you were CIA director and then as Secretary of State. And I think that from those two unique vantage points, you've seen firsthand evidence of what I've been saying for many years, that the United States of America has no better friend than the State of Israel.
And of course, the State of Israel has no better friend than the United States of America. And when they talk about that, they're not talking about the you and me U.S. of A, because they don't think about you and me, or the you and me over in Israel and Palestine. No. He's talking about the continuity of government. He's talking about that, Pakistani, Israeli, Saudi alliance, right, that caused 9/11 through their black ops and continuity of government here. You get it? Took a role of everybody. I mean, when you look at the Mossad operatives that were arrested and then connected, not only on the day of 9/11, but prior to 9/11. Yes, we've talked about the art students. Yes, we've talked about the kiosks. And you see how that's been erased from history. And you see that there were explosions in vans on King Street that day, and reported by the police. And then years later, it's probably 2-3 years ago now, probably about 2, through an FOIA, we get these scans with, their faces hidden, but of these people celebrating on the day of 9/11 with lighters on rooftops after we already knew they were dancing and singing. When you get into Amdocs and Comverse, and how even then, they were part of a surveillance network that had infiltrated the halls of U.S. government and military and intelligence all over, including secret offices, by the way. Yeah, we're best buddies. There are no better allies, right? I mean, when you got Mike, we lied, we cheated, we stole, Pompeo next to you, that's the reality of the situation.
And you can attest to that in a variety of ways. But you also worked hard to prove the other thing that I'm saying for many years, and you contributed to it personally, mightily, that Israel has no better friend in the world than the United States of America. And over the last 4 years, under President Trump and his remarkable team, led by you and Ambassador Friedman and Jared Kushner and others, Israel's alliance with the U.S. has reached unprecedented heights. Thanks to...
I would agree there. I think that is actually accurate. And if you heard him say Jared Kushner, that is not a mistake. I know there's been some, talk in the press of them having a falling out, but overall, I mean, Kushner is about as pro-Israel and outwardly pro-Israel as you could get.
President Trump, the U.S. recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital and moved its embassy here. Thanks to President Trump, the United States recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Thanks to President Trump, the U.S. pulled out of the dangerous nuclear deal with Iran, placed crippling sanctions on the Iranian regime.
And I would argue that's a bad thing. Okay, and he's also about to talk about the assassination of Soleimani. I think that's also a bad thing. Am I allowed to have that opinion? See, the media won't say that those are bad things, really. They'll play a little bit that it was dangerous he did the Soleimani thing, and they'll play a little bit the ending the nuclear deal's, not that great. But they love war. They can't get enough war. So that's not, a reason to attack the Orange Man.
And eliminated the mega-terrorist Qasem Soleimani. Thanks to President Trump, the United States proposed the first truly realistic plan for peace between Israelis and Palestinians. And thanks to President Trump, Israel was able to forge peace with 3 Arab countries, the UAE, Bahrain, and Sudan. Israel is deeply grateful for all that President Trump has done with you and the others of the team to strengthen Israel and to advance peace. And Israel is deeply grateful to you, Mike, for your unwavering support.
Listen, when he's saying, strengthen Israel and advance peace, that doesn't mean leaving Syria. That doesn't mean getting out of Afghanistan and Iraq. It doesn't mean those things. It doesn't mean, and by the way, there were a few, I know Rand Paul, Mike Lee, I forget who else was a part of it. They were trying to stop the sale of certain types of fighter jets in an arms deal that the Trump administration just last week was going to make. Okay? The people of Yemen, they're not going to feel that safe and secure with the peace and prosperity that's come to Israel through this administration. That's an issue. That should be able to be talked about, obviously.
You have, under your leadership in the CIA and the State Department, you strengthened the alliance between Israel and the United States. In your tenure at the CIA, intelligence cooperation was made stronger than ever, enhancing the security of both our countries. Under your leadership at the State Department, U.S. representatives at the UN and other international forums have unabashedly defended Israel with no apologetics and no artificial correctives, just defended Israel, defended what is right, defended what is true.
Other than the defended what is right, what is true part, I mean, everything he said there is strengthened it, shared intelligence. It's an amalgamated force in many respects. And again, later on, when you get into the quote anti-Semitism they bring up, you're now talking about the restriction of speech via a nation state. And by the way, Benjamin Netanyahu, and let's do this one live, has said Israel is not for everybody, and it is an ethnostate, which is even scarier to me. Okay, and we'll do it live. Israel is not for everybody. Netanyahu. Okay, that's The Guardian. What was that, over a year ago now? Not quite a year ago. No, yes, a year and a half. Yeah, Israel is not a state of all its citizens. It's not. I mean, this is an ethno-state, guys. That's the nuttiest thing. I mean, personally, I am not for ethno-states. Just me. Just me. And that's never talked about. Now, am I allowed to talk about that? Is that okay? I mean, I would say that if you really want to see some good work on the tragedies that do take place there, check out Abby Martin. I believe it's Gaza Fight for Freedom is her latest documentary on it. And, you know, she's very much involved with the BDS movement, and she was supposed to sign some pledge before she spoke somewhere to Israel, which she refused. And she's currently in a court case about it. And good for her. I'm glad she didn't bend the knee. You don't bend the knee to nation states that are part of a mega military industrial complex alliance and that are completely unaccountable for their war crimes. Okay? Period. You don't do that. Oh, what's happening here?
And I want to thank you for your personal involvement in all these things. Everything that I said involves your personal contribution as well. And the U.S. rejected the assumptions about the legal status of Israeli communities in Judea and Samaria. Thanks to your tremendous efforts to carry out President Trump's maximum pressure campaign, Iran's feet have been held to the fire, and we have seen a reduction in the amount of support that they are given to their various proxies in the region. Your 12 points set the standard for what Iran needs to do if it wants to be treated like a normal country. Those who claim that your 12 points are either unnecessary or unrealistic simply want to give Iran a free pass on Iran's atrocious human rights record, a free pass on Iran's support for terrorism, a free pass on Iran's aggression in the region, a free pass on Iran's menacing missile development, and worst of all,
Let me just say this before we get to that worst of all. Does that sound like Iran, or does that sound like the military-industrial complex in that region? Human rights abuses? Millions upon millions upon millions of people over the last decade and a half plus have been killed by robots in the sky. I get it. No, you know what? Those robots aren't jihadis, so they don't count. Okay? It's not good enough that they kill 5, 6, 7 times the amount of an actual jihadi with their ability to do so from the sky. Maybe more, right? But they don't count. I mean, we are in imagination land.
Free pass on Iran's plans to develop nuclear weapons with the express purpose of annihilating Israel and conquering the Middle East. The tyrants of Tehran deserve no free passes. And for all this and for much more, Israel is grateful to you. I am grateful to you. Thank you, Mike, for your tremendous friendship and for your invaluable contribution to our alliance and to Israel's security and to the expansion of the circle of peace. Thank you, friend, and we hope to see you next year in Jerusalem.
Thank you. Mr. Prime Minister, it's an honor and a joy to be here with you today.
I mean, you see him bite his lip. I mean, Pompeo loves this. That's what's even more. I mean, the love fest between these two guys. I mean, it's bosom buddies, no doubt about it.
Last night, I had a chance to walk through the city of David. Today, you and I met looking out over the old city. The peace, the increased prosperity, and the reduced risk to citizens all across the world and in the region, and to here in the Jewish homeland that we have accomplished together is historic. And you should be proud that you have led your people in this direction. And President Trump, I know, is proud of the work that we have done alongside of you. We've done incredible things. It's remarkable. You went through the list, whether it's the simple fact of recognizing the reality of Jerusalem as the rightful, proper, true capital of Israel. Crazy that the United States hadn't done this for decades.
And then here's where it starts to get off the rails, in my opinion. It's like, yeah, we're just going to give you the oil-rich region that's not yours. No problem. And no one questions it.
And then we moved our embassy there. How simple, how right, how just. I remember the stories when I was serving in Congress that if we did this, there would be war. But in fact, peace is what has followed. Today I'll get a chance to visit the Golan Heights. The simple recognition of this as part of Israel, too, was a decision President Trump made that is historically important and simply a recognition of the reality. And then you talked about the fact that for a long time the State Department took the wrong view of settlements. It took a view that didn't recognize the history of this special place. And instead now...
The history of this special place. Settlements. Guys, what does settlements really amount to? Taking land from other people by force, which is not yours. Is that bigoted to say? I mean, that's the reality. And Mike Pompeo's saying, they didn't recognize the historic nature and special nature of this land, which gives these people the right to just do whatever the fuck they want. I mean, that's some backwards ass bullshit right there.
Now today, the United States Department of State stands strongly to the recognition that settlements can be done in a way that are lawful and appropriate and proper.
Lawful, appropriate, and proper. Notice none of that was said without bloodshed or force. Let's point that out. All right? You can make a law. I mean, look at some of the laws that are being passed right now through executive order that are happy horseshit throughout the entire world. You get it? Now, lawful means jack smack right now. Give me a break.
I'm proud of the 3 Abraham Accords. I'm hopeful and confident there will be more. It was because of your good work, because of the good work of the American team. It was because of great leaders in those 3 countries who did the right thing. And I'm confident that this will continue. It will continue because people are demanding peace. People have come to recognize all across this region that the right thing to do is recognize the state of Israel as appropriate and proper and a great, wonderful partner for all things economic and academic and security. I am confident.
Economic, academic, security. You know what I didn't hear anything about? Freedom. Do you hear anything about freedom there? Huh? You hear anything about a democratic constitutional republic? You hear anything about that? Because I missed it if you did.
That this one-way movement, this one-way ratchet towards peace will continue. Today I want to make one announcement with respect to a decision by the State Department that we will regard the global anti-Israel BDS campaign as anti-Semitic. I know this sounds simple to you, Mr. Prime Minister.
It sounds simple that we're going to label a political campaign that might show some of your war crimes as anti-Semitic, even though you're the one that said Israel isn't for everybody and have created an ethnostate that is apparently unaccountable. Yeesh.
Minister, it seems like a statement of fact, but I want you to know that we will immediately take steps to identify organizations that engage in hateful BDS conduct and withdraw U.S. government support for such groups. The time is right.
It doesn't sound simple. It sounds simply wonderful to me.
Oh, simply wonderful. Oh, wait, see, I mean, he can't get enough. So more censorship?
Look, we want to stand with all other nations that recognize the BDS movement for the cancer that it is.
Cancer.
And we're committed to combating it. Our record speaks for itself. During the Trump administration, America stands with Israel like never before. Indeed, the commitment we've made, the ironclad commitment we've made to the Jewish state will continue. I'm confident that after our conversation this morning, we talked about how we can protect Americans and Israelis in the region from the regime in Tehran. You talked about this. They remain, we should not take for granted, they remain the foremost state sponsor of terrorism in all the world.
You know, we often forget that just, during the midterms around there, we had a lot of escalation with Iran. You had that limpet mine incident, and it was a little uncertain. You were wondering whether or not this administration was going to go full force and some kind of military action was going to be taken against Iran. One of the things that Whitney Webb in particular has warned of during these very uncertain times of COVID-1984 and the election instability of this country is the possibility of some type of terrorist event or false flag that would be blamed on Iran, further escalating these draconian measures that have been put into place via lockdowns. Something to think about, guys. Something to think about.
And Israel's provided outstanding support to our pressure campaign, which we have no intention of relaxing. Indeed, just yesterday, the United States unleashed a wave of new sanctions on senior regime officials, an arm of the regime's oppression that poses a charitable foundation. It's known as Mashar. These actions mark the one-year anniversary of the regime's massacre of its own citizens in the city of Mashar, citizens who were peacefully protesting their government's corruption and abuses. We stand with the Iranian people against those abuses. We want peace and security for the entire region and for Israel in every respect. These landmark agreements we've secured over these last handful of weeks give new hope that Israelis and Palestinians can end their conflict. I also conveyed...
End their conflict? End their conflict. I mean, at no point, again, were we talking about freedom of any of the people, Israelis, Palestinians, nothing. Just that, settlements are can be lawfully done. Period. We had taken the wrong position on them. This is a special place. Special.
To the Prime Minister our support for the decision by the governments of Israel and Lebanon to begin discussions on the maritime boundary, for which we are acting as a mediator and facilitator. We hope that this long-standing dispute can be resolved. The negotiation has the potential to yield increased stability, security, and prosperity for both Israeli citizens and those in Lebanon as well. One more point. In August of this year, the United States supported the renewal of the UNIFIL mission, but we demanded some important conditions, and for good reason. For far too long, Hezbollah has enjoyed near total freedom of movement through UNIFIL's mandated areas of control. And with Iran's support, has built up an arsenal of weapons, fired missiles into Israel, dug attack tunnels underneath the Lebanon-Israel border, and more. The United States cannot abide by these actions against our trusted friend. The most recent renewal of the mandate included new reporting requirements on those attacks against peacekeepers and investigations of access denials.
Again,
we are hopeful that these
more Iran stuff, more Hezbollah, more boogeyman, terror boogeyman.
Important steps will ensure UNIFIL can be a multilateral mission that actually fulfills its mandate. If not, we'll have to move in a different direction. Mr. Prime Minister, it's always an honor to be here with you and to visit Israel. This is a place that has a special place in my heart and the heart of so many Americans. Bless you. Thank you for your good work alongside the Trump administration. I wish all of us many, many more years of successful partnership between our two countries. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mike.
The love fest ends. And folks, so does this program. I'm so glad you joined me live over on Rockfin. If you made that free account, I want to remind everybody we are fully demonetized on this platform, aka YouTube, not on Rockfin. Making some scratch here. By the way, the Ray token surged to $1.08 yesterday, fell back down, but it's holding tight between 90 and $1 and change. Obviously, there's a crypto explosion happening right now with Bitcoin going up and Ethereum going up. But if you want to support me, you can do so through the GoFundMe, $5, $10, $15. It means the world to me. Again, I want to remind you, CagedAggression.tv, also a way to support me this weekend. Doing my first live MMA gig, going to be streaming from there, but you can get the pay-per-view. You can actually even select my name, which is awesome. Let them know that you found out about it here. Friday and Saturday night. I'm going to be going down there, I think, in about 4 or 5 hours. So we'll probably be, replaying a lot of this stuff today on YouTube, at least 2 segments of it. If you're not on Rockfin, if you weren't watching this live, if you're not part of that, I don't know what you're waiting for. Join the Rockfin. It's free. Monday through Friday at 11 a.m., we go live exclusively at Rockfin. A lot of that content stays here as it gets a little too spicy a meatball for YouTube. So consider supporting me there. Check out all the documentary films for free. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order to Find, and Shade the Motion Picture. And remember, thumbs it up, subscribe, share, join the Burmese Brigade. I absolutely love you guys, and I'll see you on the flip side.